Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to today's webinar, Integration That Outperforms, Integrating SYSPRO ERP and Salesforce CRM. We'd like to thank you all for joining us today and encourage you to enter any questions that you may have as we proceed through today's webinar into the questions or chat box, and we'll get to those questions at the conclusion of our formal presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded, so we will invite you to share that recording with others in your organization, or if you wish to review the material that's presented, certainly that will be available within a few days on our website and in email response to you with the recording link and details. So just before we begin today's webinar, we want to spend a moment looking at a little bit of background information on Magic Software. We're the company presenting today's webinar. My name is Glenn Johnson. I'm a Senior Vice President here with Magic Software Americas, and I'm joined today by Orgat, who is a Senior Consultant with Magic Software. Magic Software is a company that empowers customers around the globe with smarter technology that delivers a multi-channel user experience for enterprise processes and business logic and data. And we're very much a company that has been involved in application development and business integration platforms with some 30 years of proven experience, a very innovative technology that allows you to focus on your business needs and requirements by simplifying the underlying technology infrastructure that you work with. As a company, Magic was established in 1983. We're currently traded on the NASDAQ stock exchange under the ticker symbol MGIC. Some 15 offices worldwide with operations in more than 50 countries, about 1,000 employees, and more than 2,500 global partners, thousands of customers, millions of end users. A company that has offices, as we said, around the world, including research and development centers, support centers in California, as well as in Israel and India, servicing customers around the globe 24/7. We're in strategic alliance with a number of the industry leaders in the software industry and many more than those just listed here as well, to try to stay abreast with the latest trends, both technically and in terms of what's happening in applications. As a result of all of these activities, we have a large base of customers from well-known name brands to mid-sized to even small enterprises that are trying to leverage and get the most out of their IT assets so that they can accomplish their business purposes within their organization. Let's get right into the heart of today's webinar and the discussion on SYSPRO, which of course is a well-known ERP system, one that prides itself on supporting its customers through effective implementations, customizing and tailoring those implementations to customer requirements, and really providing an all-in-one solution for a company's business operations and transactions. There is, however, a requirement from time to time for some of those customers to utilize third-party CRM or customer relationship management systems. And so that was the topic of today's webinar. That's why you're here. Before we dive deeply into Salesforce.com, we should mention that there are choices. And whenever you're choosing to use CRM with SYSPRO, you do have options. Adapt CRM obviously would be one of those options. There are solutions like Oracle CRM on Demand, obviously Salesforce.com, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, Sugar CRM, Remedy, and on and on. There are a lot of different cloud-based and on-premise CRM solutions that are available. Each of them has slightly different ways of interfacing and interacting through an API, which is an application programming interface that allows that CRM application to speak to the rest of the world in its language. The challenge, of course, is that the language it speaks and the language that SYSPROs speak are obviously going to be different. there are uniquenesses between these. And so APIs, although they're available and wonderful because they expose information to the rest of the world and allow your system to be integrated, need to be intermediated. There needs to be, if you will, translation, or more accurately, transformation of data and information, as well as orchestration of business processes between these systems. So when we look at these choices for SYSPRO, many of you have selected Salesforce.com. That's presumably why you are here on today's webinar. But we need to remember that integration isn't as easy as some people make it out to be. It needs to be easier than the industry standard experience. And we'll be talking about ways that you can get better than the industry standard experience here today. Integration, according to Ovum and many other analysts who look at the topic, remains a barrier to SaaS adoption. Saurabh Sharma suggests that the ever-increasing significance and adoption of software as a service in enterprise IT has concealed the issues inherent to the shift from a traditional model for software delivery to an as-a-service model. And despite the emergence of similar delivery models, in essence, integration as a service, integration remains a barrier to SaaS adoption. So Salesforce CRM, being a software as a service in the cloud model, requires integration to your SYSPRO system, whether your SYSPRO system is installed on-premise or if it's installed in the cloud somewhere. And so that integration can be a factor that you really need to carefully evaluate, and that's obviously why you're here today. And so we want to talk about what some of the important issues around integration are, and then we're going to actually look at some of the techniques that can be used and how you can do an actual hands-on integration between SYSPRO and Salesforce. So there is a gap, if you will, between ERP and CRM. The APIs, as we said, are exposing the information, but there are business processes that are unique to each that would be ideal if they were integrated to one another and if there was some orchestration between those processes. And if you have a gap, you can have business problems. In other words, there can be delays in converting opportunities into orders. There can be a lack of credit history and credit status visibility for your sales team. There can be duplicate and mismatched customer data in separate systems that are, if you're doing manual separate data entry. There can be an inability to make really informed cross-sell and upsell recommendations by your sales team because of a lack of visibility into order histories and things of that nature that might be stored in another system. And there can be poor forecasting, unwanted back orders that result from that, and just overall a disconnect between some of the online and offline business processes that are taking place in your organization. So this is not a surprise to anyone. This is normal. This is to be expected between any ERP system and any CRM system, that if you don't really think carefully about how to integrate them, that there will be some gaps, some silos of information that are occurring in the organization. Well, when you're adopting CRM, when you're taking an approach to use Salesforce CRM or any CRM system, you're doing it because you want to take advantage of a 360-degree view of customer information. And so the profitability of CRM, the ROI of a solution like this, is in part very dependent upon full visibility and full interaction with customer data and information. That can lead to cost reduction, better customer service, and enhanced customer experience, and ultimately increased customer satisfaction, retention, and loyalty. So that's a very important cycle to get your company involved in, because you have the benefit of visibility of customer information, ability to interact quickly with that organization, and that, of course, can lead to greater repeat business, greater new business, and ultimately greater profitability. So CRM can bring great value to the organization, and it really hinges on this idea of visibility of information across all dimensions of that customer's experience. So there's a need, according to organizations like Aberdeen and other research analysts, for this integrated view of the customer. I'll go ahead and share with you what Aberdeen reports, and they suggest that a 360-degree view of the customer has become a common phrase used by CRM vendors. Indeed, these solutions can provide much of the account information, contacts, conversations, contracts, and communications needed to understand customer attributes and to track and manage interactions between the provider and the customer. But for the transactional fiscal audit trail, however, enterprise resource planning solutions that form the operational system of record within the business often provide the missing link to complete the view. ERP and CRM solutions are becoming more closely intertwined in order to satisfy the growing informational needs of an increasing number of constituents within the provider organization, from marketing, sales, and service, to the design and delivery of products and services, to finance, administration, and senior management. Throw in some business intelligence and customer analytics, and now you have a genuine, complete 360-degree view. So there is truly a need for this 360-degree view, and neither CRM nor ERP systems alone obviously contain that complete view of the customer. So there are benefits that occur from having that 360-degree view. Aberdeen goes on to say that from the end user's perspective, the key benefits of providing a complete view of the customer include the opportunity to increase share of customer wallets and share of market, resulting in increased new customer acquisition, expanded ability to upsell or cross-sell to existing customers, improved customer satisfaction, and reduced operational or internal inefficiencies in servicing or selling to the customer. So all of us can, I think, intuitively understand that what these analysts are talking about is accurate, that it's very important to maintain visibility of customer information for all of our knowledge workers, whether they be salespeople, whether they be finance people, and that the work that finance does, the work that accounting people do, the work that is done in the manufacturing side of the organization, in the warehouse, all of that is relevant to what's happening for a customer at any particular moment and what is important to them. So Salesforce.com has, of course, some core CRM capabilities that we're going to be talking about in today's webinar in terms of how these become important and in terms of ERP integration. And so in a CRM system like Salesforce, you have the ability for account and contact management, assignment of leads and routing those leads, for managing your opportunities, for using even capabilities for Google AdWords, notes and attachments, integration with your desktop productivity environments, managing activities, recording activity histories, and obviously capturing in leads, working with email templates, data validation. These are the core functional areas of Salesforce.com CRM. And then there, of course, there are more advanced capabilities that have often to do more with the management level of the use of Salesforce CRM, where you have things like territory management, the ability to maintain the product catalog, the ability to maintain the marketing campaigns and lists, and do mass quote updates. And then, as we, of course, know, through Force.com and the App Exchange, there are a number of extensions to Salesforce CRM for marketing and for territory management and alignment and all sorts of other requirements that you may have in your organization. And Salesforce CRM also offers call center functionality for those of you that are involved in call centers. So that's a lot of data, metadata, and information that may need to be interacted with in order for CRM to be integrated. You really need to make sure that all of those data points and touch points can be considered as potentially containing information that's relevant to an overall business process that spans multiple systems. So CRM requires integration in order to deliver on its promise of a 360-degree view. It requires data integration, it needs to be networked, there may be some custom data fields that you've created either in your ERP or in your CRM environments. You need to be able to orchestrate those business processes in order to get true integrated CRM benefits within your organization. So this gap between ERP and CRM can occur when systems run without integration. And a number of business process gaps can create problems for your organization, And common gaps include things that we'll talk about in a moment, but there are a number of these gaps that need to be considered. Let's look for a moment at the ERP touch points. When we look at some of the important areas of ERP functionality, some of the more common areas for CRM touch points might be in the areas of receivables, the address book, mail integration, inventory management. As you can see here, sales order management and warehouse management. There may even be a human capital dimension to that. And product data management, of course, is an area where there's often some need for that information in the CRM system that's coming from the system of record over in the ERP. So there are a lot of common business processes that span SYSPRO and Salesforce systems where we really want to start looking at how can we integrate and what can we do to create an end-to-end process orchestration. Most obvious and probably the #1 requirement is opportunity to order conversion. So in Salesforce.com, when you've created an opportunity, you're tracking that opportunity, you're managing your pipeline and your forecast. There comes a point at which that deal closes and it becomes an order. When it becomes an order, obviously there's a lot of information already in the CRM system that can be exchanged with the ERP system, with SYSPRO, and you're going to want to have a process in place for opportunity to order conversion. It's also important then to be able to have visibility for accounts in Salesforce of the history information that might also be based on information coming from SYSPRO. You want to have visibility of quotes, obviously. You want to be able to see things like credit notes and credit status visibly within the CRM system, where normally that would be in the domain of ERP. You want to be able to check inventory status, another thing that's in the domain of ERP, so that as you're developing quotes, it might be useful to be able to check inventory status and get that information displayed right within your CRM system. Order fulfillment, delivery tracking is, of course, another common request. Customers are constantly asking the question, "Where's my stuff?" And is it on the truck? Where is it? And there are third-party web services through UPS, FedEx, the U.S. Postal Service, the common carriers that allow a company to be able to have that information instantly available, and having that integrated into the customer record at the point when you're looking at that customer record can be very valuable. It might also be interesting for many of you to be able to integrate a service request in the CRM system to RMA integration or RMA capabilities within SYSPRO. And so that's another area. And then another common requirement we see are things for multi-company or multi-currency integration. Obviously, address book integration, the basic contact details, is going to be an important area for you to look at, and then the master item database. The synchronization rules for your organization are something that you really need to think through. Is this a master-slave relationship where CRM users are strictly consuming information that's coming from the ERP system? Probably. Or is it a master-master item database synchronization? Certainly in terms of address book as viewed as that master item data, then yeah, probably it is a master-master approach where either a salesperson or an accounting person can update a record. Now, you may even want to have further business rules regarding that, where when a change to an existing record is initiated, there might be a workflow or approval process step that needs to be incorporated into that, and that can certainly be looked at as a methodology where you might have an email with an approval on the email, approval button on the email, and then once that button is pressed, then the information goes ahead and the update of master item database for address book and contact information is carried out in both systems. So integration, unfortunately, despite the potential benefits, remains a barrier to SaaS adoption. And Saurabh Sharma went on to say that there are cases where organizations have shifted from one integration platform as a service solution to the other, as a rigorous proof of concept evaluation was not conducted in the first instance to check whether the integration platform solution was capable of supporting low latency and data-intensive transactions. And then there are cases where custom code development was the only option left, seemingly, for these organizations to achieve on-premise to SaaS integration. And invariably, such moves result in time and cost overruns, and such disappointments also lead to the belief that the shift to a SaaS model was not the correct decision. So there are some pitfalls here, and even respected analysts like Ovum are suggesting that, gosh, maybe we shouldn't even have started down that path. Well, the good news is that there are integration platforms available, and we do agree with Ovum that you need to very carefully evaluate and ask the question, is this a scalable solution? Are we going to have latency issues? Is the performance going to be there for the number of transactions that we have, and for the data intensity or size of those transactions that we're expecting to carry forward? So that integration gap is something that you can try to fill in a number of ways. You can fill it with a sea of programmers, as the analyst from Ovum has suggested, or you can look at a more proper way to bridge the gap. And that's really what we want to talk about today and show you, is how you can bridge that gap properly, utilizing the APIs of the two systems, but also then automating the integration between those APIs in terms of automated intermediation, data transformation, mapping, routing of the messages back and forth the APIs are expecting, and so on. So how do you do that? Well, in Salesforce, there are a few considerations for the IT department in dealing with the objects, the metadata, the bulk jobs, the replication that needs to take place, and the lead conversion. So let's discuss briefly each one of these. First of all, when you're working with objects, you're going to want an integration platform that allows you to get the objects list, get the timestamp, update the object structure, and even merge objects together as it may be required. What this means from a practical standpoint is that you're going to be able to work with all of the various aspects of Salesforce in order to integrate any business process that your business analyst may identify as being important to your organization. You also want to be able to work with the metadata of Salesforce, the data being the actual record, name, address, phone number, dollar amount, and so on. The metadata being the information that it relates to the integration details themselves. And so with Salesforce, there's lots of metadata. You want to be able to check the state of Salesforce's metadata, do metadata retrieves, be able to update and read and delete and copy metadata, be able to deploy metadata. And so you need functionality within the integration platform's adapter for Salesforce for all of these functions as well. You also need to be able to work with Salesforce bulk operations. Remember, the analyst talked about low latency, talked about data-intensive operations. Sometimes you have thousands of records to be updated all at once, and so you want to be able to do bulk jobs within Salesforce. And so the integration adapter should have the ability to deal with the Salesforce CRM platform's bulk operations API. That's another important part of those capabilities. And then ultimately, of course, you're going to want to be able to do the replication, the synchronization of information and data, so that you may in fact want to store information that's in the cloud on Salesforce locally and be able to do some replication of either all the data or the last updates, the last deletes, and so on. And then finally, as we said, of course, you need to have that all-important capability for lead conversion, so that when a lead converts, its contact information becomes available, the account ID, the contact ID, being able to work with the lead source, the opportunity, the owner ID, and so on. So these are all various fields of information that Salesforce tracks related to a lead when it becomes converted, its status changes, and that suddenly becomes interesting to the SYSPRO user, is who is this new account, who is this new contact, for example, that we're working with. So how do we do that? Well, the Magic XPI integration platform provides capabilities for integration between SYSPRO and Salesforce CRM. So what we're providing is an open and collaborative way of working, a platform from which you can integrate the API of SYSPRO and the APIs of Salesforce. So it streamlines the business processes, allows you to work transparently across different applications, different databases, even different computing platform environments and operating systems, and really be able to monitor what's going on when those systems are running so that you can see the business process, the data, the logic, the information that's being transformed and exchanged between them. And you need to be able to work sometimes in real time and sometimes in an asynchronous fashion, maybe even in a batch job kind of approach. It really depends upon your business requirement. And the result needs to be a smooth running business process, one that's going to reduce operational costs, it's going to improve revenue performance for your organization, and ultimately reduce business risk because you have an integrated business process rather than a disconnected process with gaps between systems. And we do that, of course, by providing a code-free approach so that you don't have to have a team of programmers to do this. There's no line-by-line coding involved. And in fact, it's a metadata-driven integration studio, which means that you work at a higher level, a business level, in order to control the business logic. And underneath that, the platform worries about all of the little details of the integration requirements. So these are pretty user-friendly tools. You're going to see it in a moment, the Magic XPI 4.0 platform. And very importantly, this platform has what we call elastic scalability because we have an in-memory data grid. So in-memory computing, a lot of you know, is something that allows for a transaction to be take place in memory. And when that occurs, it's much faster than the older style of working with disk operations. So in-memory computing grids can allow an organization to scale both vertically and horizontally. And we actually have a space that is created that it contains both memory and processing capability. And the grid of that combination of memory and processing, let's just suffice it to say in this very short discussion of this issue, provides you with capabilities for elastic scalability so that you can deal with any volume of transactions that your organization may require now or in the future. So from an architectural standpoint, when we look at Magic XPI, we can think of all of the external things that are shown above here, the various databases and frameworks that work with Magic XPI's protocol adapters, and the various applications that work with the enterprise adapters, and services and methods that are part of the Magic XPI platform. Now, Magic XPI then gives you the ability to apply logic to those connections so that you can orchestrate a business process. You can transform and map data. You can route messages. You can exchange transactional information between systems. You can monitor what's going on in that integration environment and manage all of those processes, including full error recovery and alternate business scenarios. That's possible because underneath that you have a very strong server environment that uses this grid deployment. It's capable of cloud and on-premise integration with this shared nothing or space-based architecture that we spoke about. Has in-memory messaging, works with both synchronous and asynchronous methodology, which will be important to some of the IT people listening. And the context, scalability, and security are all accurately dealt with, and of course these are very important issues for all of your organizations. So this Magic XPI technology can be thought of as, first of all, a studio. In other words, an area where you design the business process. You say, this is how I want my SYSPRO and my Salesforce systems to integrate with one another. This is where you make decisions about things like, should it be a master-master relationship between these the data in the two systems, or is it a master-slave relationship? You know, what is that going to look like? And so you have a business process editor that allows you to define at a very high level how that overall business process is going to work. It provides, you know, some nice pictures and boxes that you can share with your business users so that they can say, yes, this is what we want to accomplish. Then you also have a topology editor, which is taking more of an IT view of what are the various systems that are in place in my environment that needs to be integrated, and kind of provides a naming convention and a visualization of what's in that environment. The flow editor then is going to be the area of the Magic XPI Studio where most of the work is done, and allows you to do the data mapping and then check all of the business processes and business logic that you've created with a checker and a debugger. Once it's launched and running on that Magic XPI server with the in-memory data grid technology that's depicted over there on the right, you have a monitor which provides you with visibility into what's happening with all of those integration processes. So you have a dashboard view, a log view that allows you to really see what's going on in that environment. So when it comes to SYSPRO, of course, a lot of you know that SYSPRO provides a variety of elements to its API. The SYSPRO Web Services, which are built on top of SYSPRO eNet, and Magic XPI, through its services capability, is able to integrate and access all of these important functionalities within the SYSPRO environment. And so using you know, Magic Software's integration platform, you can orchestrate and mediate the business information between these two systems. And so that's really what we want to show you today, is some examples of, you know, kind of how you can do that in a variety of different ways. And so what I'm going to do now is take a moment to identify Orr as our presenter. And he should now have control and be able to show us his demonstration. Orr?
Yeah, I'm here, Glenn. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Hi. So, hi everyone, and welcome to the live demonstration part of today's webinar. What I wanted to show you today is a live integration between SYSPRO and Salesforce, as Glenn mentioned before, and a few various ways of carrying out such an integration, and how much easier it is to do that within the Magic XPI Studio than within coding environment. So we'll start by just logging on to our SYSPRO server. And while we do that, let's talk a little bit about what integration is and the way that Magic sees integration. So integration is something that the end user doesn't care about. Meaning, on the one side, I have an ERP user, which would be my SYSPRO user, that can create contacts, can create queries, can create sales orders, and so on. And the information that he creates is relevant to the users of my CRM, meaning Salesforce, but he doesn't care how it gets there. The integration engine should be a black box that runs 24/7 and carries out the integration for you, and shouldn't have a UI, shouldn't have a button that I need to click in order for the integration to take place. Integration is a 24/7 batch process. It doesn't need any human intervention once it's already carried out. So in order to see what we mean by that, I'm going to create a new account. I just remember the numbers on my SYSPRO accounts, and 21 is one of the highest ones. Let's create an account name. Let's get one for Glenn, which I don't think is on our system. Let's make it Glenn. John, just to avoid duplications in KCEs. Let's create that partner as that account as a lead for now. Let's give it an address in 123 Carlota Street, which is the Magic Street. Sorry about that. I lost connection for a sec. So I hope you can still see my screen. So Carlota Street, which is where Magic is located in Laguna Hills, in California, in the USA. Let's give it a zip to 90210. I don't remember, so let's give it the Beverly Hills old zip code. And basically that's it. Two more records that I want to add. A phone number. Let's make it a generic one. And an email. glenn@mail.com. So as I was saying, the creation of the account is the same as creation of any account within a non-integrated process. The only button that I had to click at the end of the creation of the account was save. There was no additional button saying, okay, integration, now it's time for you to take this record and create a duplicate record of it in Salesforce, or create the same object as an account in Salesforce. The integration process is simply something that no one cares about. It runs in the background and it carries on the integration. Now if I zoom out of this screen and I'll go back here and I'll scroll down, the integration already picked up the record and created the account in Salesforce. How do I know that? Notice the user-defined field that I have set before that would hold the Salesforce ID after the new Salesforce object was created. I will prove that to you in a sec after I zoom back into the record and just copy the ID. So basically what we've seen here, and I'll show it to you in a sec, is two-way integration. It wasn't just created in Salesforce. After it was created in Salesforce, the ID, the key of the new account in Salesforce, was sent back to my SYSPRO ERP system, just so I know that the integration did in fact was carried out in the background. Now in order for me to show you what happened, I'll take you to a second screen where I have my Salesforce CRM application deployed. So that's my Salesforce CRM. I have various accounts here. Now, I don't know if you know that, but in Salesforce, the suffix of the URL is the ID. So all I have to do is paste the ID that I took from the previous screen. Again, I will show it to you. So that's the ID that I took from the dynamic CRM system and pasted it as a URL. Now by clicking enter, I will see that account. And as you can see, the account was created with the exact information that we wrote in the SYSPRO CRM system, in the SYSPRO ERP system. The account was Glenn Johnson. It's a lead. The email that we've created for it, the address that we've created for it, and so on. The phone number, a generic phone number that we gave it. So this is how the integration was carried out. What happened? What basically happened behind the scenes in order for the integration to run, to pick up a new record, and how hard was it really to write the process for doing that account integration between the two systems. For that, I'll take you to my Magic XPI server where I have deployed my Magic XPI integration suite. When we talk about the Magic XPI integration suite, the suite is comprised of three different elements to it. The studio, as Glenn mentioned, which is where with a minimum amount of effort I can create the integration between my applications. I basically write the logic and the rules of the integration between the two applications. The server, which is the 24/7 black box system that runs in the background and carries out the integration. And because it doesn't have a UI, because it's a black box, because it's something that keeps on running in the background, I do want to have a way of knowing or of monitoring what was carried out by the Magic XPI integration server. For that, we have a third part to the suite, which is the monitor, which lets us see what was carried out by the integration server. So currently the integration server is running. I can see that from my monitor. Specifically, my monitor shows a large variety of projects, and as you can see, a green light is lit next to the project that is currently running. If I open that project, I can see row by row by row exactly what was carried out by the integration server. How long did the transaction take? How long did the flow take? And this is basically a way of letting us, the developers, have a way of maintaining or controlling the integration environment even though it doesn't have a UI, even though it doesn't have any screen that you need to log on in order to carry out the integration. The integration is running in the background, and this is basically a way for me of knowing what was carried out by the server. Now, how did I write the integration project? For that, I have the third part of the tool, which I've previously mentioned, which is the studio. This is the Magic XPI Studio. As you can see, a code-free environment comprised of 3 different screens, sections of screens. This is the navigation pane, where we can create the various business processes and the various flows to carry out those business processes. Glenn previously mentioned in his slides what we refer to as business processes. For example, syncing accounts between SYSPRO and Salesforce would be one business process. Syncing contacts would be a separate business process. I can create as many business processes as I want between applications and between multiple applications. It doesn't necessarily have to be between 2. In order to carry out the logic of the business process, I need to create flows of logic. I can create as many flows of logic per each business process as I want. I'm not limited by that. Now, how do I write the logic within my flow? In order to write the logic within my flow, we use these predefined adapters or connectors. Components is what we usually call them. Those little bricks, by using a methodology of dragging, dropping, and configuring them, lets me carry out my integration. For example, I can take a Salesforce adapter, drag it, drop it on top of an existing adapter, or drop it beside an existing adapter, thus creating branches of logic, do that in case something happened, do that in case something didn't happen, and so on. This is basically how we comprise the logic of the flow, how the data would flow from top to bottom. Now, by using an adapter, by dragging and dropping, the one additional step that I need to carry out is configuring. Let's zoom into one of these adapters. Again, code-free, all I have to do is click configure. And now I have to tell this Magic XPI Studio what it is exactly that I want to do. What exactly am I looking in to integrate? So I have to select the object from Salesforce. And we've selected accounts, so this time let's select contacts, for example. And what is it that I want to do with it? Do I want to query? Glenn mentioned it might be that the data would be coming from Salesforce. It might be that it would be coming from SYSPRO. If it comes from SYSPRO, I want to create. If it comes from Salesforce, I want to query. Because we already did the create, and I'll show it to you in a second, I want to show you what happens when I query, what fields of the contact object I want to receive back from the query. I can click OK, and that's it. All I have to do now is map values, or basically where clause of how do I want to query. Only query where first name is or. That's my name, just as an example. So this is basically a very, very simple use of querying methodology of an API from Salesforce. Again, as you can see, it's code-free. The server will bring the description of the object that you want to use. For example, this time we use contacts. The description of the contacts object was displayed in a mapper screen. All the different fields of the contact object was fetched from my server. Now, not only that, they were actually fetched from my servers. If you know Salesforce a little bit, the API of Salesforce lets you see user-defined fields as well. User-defined fields in Salesforce are identified by a prefix of __C. So as you can see, user-defined fields for my Salesforce contact object are visible within the Magic XPI connector. If I'll create one later on, and if I have enough time I will do that, I will show you how to create a Salesforce field for contacts, and I can refresh this schema and it will be fetched again. So I'm not limited not to the existing object or to the existing structure of an existing object. I can add as many fields or as many objects as I want into Salesforce. Everything will be fetched by the Salesforce adapter of Magic. Now, how did my Magic server know which Salesforce account to call? I mean, I need to define which Salesforce account to use. Based on that, I'll have authorizations to do stuff and not to do other stuff. Everything in Magic XPI, all the different resources that we would use, are predefined in repositories. Magic XPI lets you define in repositories all the different services and resources that you want to consume or provide in your integration project. They are all located in one single place, so they can be reused between different components within the same project or between different projects as well. All the repositories are available under the project menu, and for example, let's look at my Salesforce resource, and that's all I have to give it: a username and password, and what is the endpoint URL. This also lets you connect to a sandbox instance of your Salesforce by simply changing the endpoint URL to point to your sandbox. I can click from here the object list and reload it, so it'll fetch all the new objects that are unique only to me. And as you can see, I have a user-defined object, address underscore C. It's a user-defined object. And all the user-defined objects can later on be used within the component. Now, with that in mind, that's the Salesforce adapter. How did I connect to SYSPRO? Again, there are various ways of connecting to SYSPRO. SYSPRO is an on-premise server. I can do the same thing as I do with Salesforce and connect to it using a web service API, as Glenn showed you in one of the slides. Specifically for this demonstration, I wanted to show you an additional capability, connecting directly to the database. Magic XPI provides native gateways to various types of databases and the capability of using any ODBC driver to connect to any type of database that you can find out there that your applications may be using. So again, we have to define a resource. How did I connect to my SYSPRO database? All I have to define is what type of DBMS, what type of server is it. Mine is MS SQL. And if I'll create a new one, I'm not limited to be using SYSPRO in its MS SQL database. SYSPRO can also reside on an ISAM database. In fact, I think that the first version of SYSPRO that we got in-house in Magic, for sakes of demonstrations, came with a set of data in ISAM files. Magic XPI also provides a native gateway to ISAM files, a pervasive connector that lets you connect to an ISAM database. So I'm not limited by the by the type of database that I'm connecting to. As I've said, we have native gateways to MS SQL, Oracle, DB2, DB2 and pervasive. We also can connect using any ODBC driver that you've defined on the local server. Let me cancel out of this and reopen it without saving, so I can show you the database adapter again to SYSPRO. Again, all I have to do is tell it what database am I connecting to, credentials, and I can validate to see that the connection to the database is in fact established. This also lets me see all the various structures and tables that can be filtered by different owners or filters. And as you can see, I can see a list of all my SYSPRO database objects. The connection between SYSPRO and Salesforce in the project, in the integration project that I have showed you, simply does a query of new accounts in Salesforce directly from the database. and I recognize new accounts by checking the user-defined field that I've showed you and seeing where it's empty. The Magic XPI native gateway for SQL, the meaning of native basically means that any SQL query that you will run here that can run from any other client would be valid from here. Now say you're not a SQL expert, you want to use a wizard. You can also use a wizard in order to comprise your SQL statement. Simply select the table, select the various columns that you want to fetch, and write the where clause using the columns or a set of variables that we provide. Now, I wrote the SQL query myself, so I could hit SQL, and because it's a native client, I could copy-paste any SQL statement out there. This means that if, in addition to you running your SYSPRO application on an MS SQL database, you also have a bunch of stored procedures that you wrote for other types of integration on the same MS SQL server, those stored procedures can also be activated from here. Simply type exec in order to execute the stored procedure name and the parameters. The idea of having native clients within Magic lets you do whatever you can do from any other client. So by fetching new records, all I have to do now is create those accounts and then to update the ID back in Salesforce. And as you can see, it's all done within 3 or 4 steps, carrying out the integration forward. There are other APIs of SYSPRO that we can consume. For example, web service APIs. Now, without getting too much into it, Magic XPI lets you consume web service APIs by simply pasting in the WSDL. Just in order to show you what I mean by that, let me take you back to my Salesforce screen. And right next to it, all I did was to find a web service API of a simple conversion rate, meaning an in coin and an out coin and the conversion rate between 2 different currencies. Now that's the web service API. All I have to do is find its WSDL. The WSDL is always with the prefix of $WSDL. And how will I consume such a web service? Now I'm taking this web service because it's very small. The Cisco web services are way bigger and it will be harder to explain. So let's just take this web service and see how easy it is to consume a web service within my Magic XPI application. Again, all the different resources are predefined in the same repository, so I can log on to the resource repository and create a new one. For example, a web service client, which will be my sample conversion client. The name is meaningless, it only has to be meaningful for the developer. All I have to do in order to be able to consume such a web service, and the same goes for any web services provided by any application out there, including SYSPRO, is to paste the WSDL in, hit config, and load. What Magic XPI would do is load the WSDL for you. And what is basically a WSDL? It's a description of a web service that you can consume with an in schema and an out schema, meaning a description of a request and a description of a response. Now I want to send the request. I want to create the request in Magic XPI and I want to send it. Magic XPI loaded the WSDL and parsed the schemas for you. So if I take a connector, and my connector for creating XMLs is something called the data mapper, all I have to do in order to create the XML is to show it based on what schema do I want to create the XML. How do I want to create the request to the web service? This is done by pointing to a XSD that was parsed out of the WSDL. As you can see, a folder was created called resources with the name that we gave to our resource, and under that the XSD was already parsed. The XSD was already parsed and lets you select the route for creating the request. The request will be created from conversion rate. The response will be read from a different route. Now all I have to do again, click the map button and map from what currency, for example, Great British Pound, to what currency, for example, US dollars. Now, the information doesn't have to be hard-coded. It can come from a separate application. For example, from an application like Salesforce, which I already have the XML from an application that I read from a database, like I do in SYSPRO demonstration that I just showed you. It can come from a flat file. It can come from a set of variables coming from the web. It can come from different types of arrays, and so on. The idea is that we can consume any web service, and you don't have to be a master of understanding and reading web services because the schemas from the web services was parsed for you. All you have to do is know what to map. Again, if we talk about how to approach an integration project in the eyes of Magic XPI, the studio does 90% of the work for you. It parses the WSDers. It lets you connect to the database. You don't have to set how or when or where. It does everything for you. All you have to do is the what. What do I want to do? The how will be done by the server. With that in mind, that means that when you approach a new integration project, you have to have, and that's what Glenn mentioned previously, a very good description of the process that you want to create. What's going to be my master application? What's going to be my slave application? What's going to be a triggering event of reading a new event? By the way, the triggering event that I've used is a scheduler, a simple scheduler that runs every 20 seconds. It can be a push notification for many of the applications, and so on. Various ways of developing integration within Magic XPI. The adapters and connectors that are provided with the studio lets you do pretty much 80% of the work, maybe 90% of the work for you. All you have to do is a good mapping document, and you're good to go on an integration project. Glenn?
Thank you, Or. We'll invite you now to enter your questions into the chat box or into the questions box. So we invite you to do that. If you have any questions for us, we're happy to look at those. Seeing here, first off, will this also handle Magento integration? Either one of us could answer that. The answer is yes. You want to explain how the Magento integration is accomplished, or?
The Magento integration, again, it depends on the slave master scenario that you want to do. If we only want to read information, again, it's a way of reading it directly from a Magento database that's available. If you want to use a separate API, we also have an adapter for Magento REST API. Lets you do the integration.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question, we need to do purchase order queries. Is this object exposed?
All the different objects in Salesforce are exposed. You can also create your own object, as I've shown you, and the object will be fetched if you refresh the object list.
Yeah, and I think on the SYSPRO side as well, like you can access the list of the purchase orders, and then you can query the individual purchase orders also. So the question is, how is this licensed?
Do you want to take this, or do I?
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, the license includes the studio environment that you saw, or showing you how it allows the designer to use. It provides you with a server and environment as well, and the servers are licensed based on the size or the scale of the server, so that initially there's just a need for understanding the number of transactions. In the SYSPRO ERP community, we expect that there'd be moderate volumes, so it's a pretty affordable license there. Next question says, thank you. Will the recording be emailed to us? And yes, we will be sending a link with the recording. So we certainly invite you to look at that as well. That will be emailed hopefully early next week. You should get the email with the compiled recording of that that's available from our website. That's all the questions I see right now. So I want to thank you all for joining us and encourage you to join us again on the next Magic Software webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Or.